Where'd you come from?
Every place on earth but this.
Wow, Potsy, what a film. Like, and very different from anything you've done before. I mean, this is your second feature, and this is one of the best films I've ever seen. Obviously, one of the top Westerns. I'm sure you get that all the time. What were your biggest challenges going into this genre?
I think, I mean, like you said, my history of work has been broad and sometimes very broad comedy. So, I think going into this and saying, because sometimes you get put in a box, so it's kind of, you're like, I know I can do that, but I have to prove that I can do that. So I think overcoming the preconceived notion that I'm a comedy director, which on this, there were moments where it was hard because I like to have fun on set and I like to have it, be a lighthearted thing. But in some moments I had to restrain myself from in between takes, joking around or playing, and I think that's the biggest piece is, you gotta feel those moments and live in them. And so that, I think that's probably my hardest.
I know, there's nothing really funny about this film. It's very serious and it's great.
Him finding the money, and then Scott's when he's like, I don't know, how does it look like I got here? So there's two jokes, but they're very quick and brief. So.
And how much did the script change throughout the course of writing it?
A lot. From original concept of the story called Old Dan to then adding the historical character to then making Scott Hayes's character actually a bad guy, to the just kind of elevating it. And then when Tim signed on, it was going through and really we erased half of his dialogue and made him more of this quiet, and so there was a lot of and even up till the 2 days before the final scene, we shot that on the last day of shooting, and they tested the water on the property. It was supposed to be a physical hand-to-hand fight with Ketchum and Henry, and ends with Tim drowning Ketchum in the water. They tested the water and it turned out to have E. coli in it. So 2 days before that scene, had to kind of rewrite that. So coming in that day, I think nobody really knew what the new scene was. And so it was, it was definitely, it evolved through the process. And I think that's something you gotta embrace, because, it can't, I think it'd be hard to go from the stick rigid to the script and not change it based on actors and location and things. So.
And what about that big reveal at the end? Was that always in there? Did you always know that was going to be there from the Genesis?
Yeah, I think that was, it's one thing where you have to give that moment, and on paper that could have easily been a cheesy moment, but Scott Hayes is a fantastic actor, and the way he sold that was so impressive in his breath and his eyes and in the things he wasn't saying, that even when he did it on set and even, throughout the edit, every time that scene would come on, I would get chills again. I'm like, it actually works. Like, the reveal works. And I give Scott, he gets the credit for that because it was amazing acting. So.
Yeah, absolutely. What kind of research did you do when you started writing the film and going through everything?
I mean, Tim and I did, when he came on, we read some books, we watched old movies, there was a moment where he asked me if I'd seen McCabe and Miss Miller, an old Western, and I was like, no, I haven't seen that yet. And he's like, all right, I'm gonna hang up, call me when you've seen it. So I went and watched it that night, called him the next day. I was like, all right, I watched it. And so we talked about that. So it was a lot of just researching, who was Billy the Kid? How did he act? What were his voice and his mannerisms and his excitement to be dangerous and to toy with danger and mess with people and have that lightheartedness.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Tim, what's it like to be the quickest gunslinger in the West?
Well, I never really thought of it that way. This character's relationship with the gun is kind of more one of laconic lethality, I guess. And so I don't think he ever, at least at this superannuated point of his life, maybe when he was young, it was different. But at this point, I don't think he has any interest in that. unless it means protecting himself and his son and his way of life, which of course it ends up being. I really tried to tend to think of it in terms of this is a character who's more effective with this as a tool than just about anybody around, but he's only going to expose that if it's necessary.
Yeah, but you had to do some training. I mean, I know you had some experience with Buster Shrugs, but I mean, did you had to do a lot of training with the gun? I mean, just for that, there's several sequences in there where you just really just let loose.
Yeah, it was months of training, and luckily I had a director and his producers who allowed me to have that time. So I got down to Tennessee 3 weeks early, just not only to get my bearings, but to work on set with the guns every day. And I had the pistol in New York with me well before then. And Buster Scruggs did furnish a foundation for that, but it also, this role demanded that I take a lot of that away and almost start from scratch. But that's the fun of